In the 60s, Mexico City would be the season-ending race. That's no longer the case, but it is always a party in these parts. Welcome to the Mexico City Grand Prix. 2,285 meters above sea level, the altitude will test the driver's fitness and their engine's efficiency. 17 corners, 7 to the left, 10 to the right, that make up a 2.6-mile circuit equipped with 2 DRS zones. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and it's Andrea Kimi Antonelli in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Mayer, Aiden Jackson, and Hadjar, Gasly, Sainz, Bortoleto, and Ollie Behrman, Norris, Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Pepe Marti, Albon, Doohan, Esteban Ocon, and Nico Hülkenberg, Lawson, Maloney, Colapinto, and Paul Aaron completes the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes, delighted to say that we're joined today by Anthony Davidson. Well, this is the most advanced sport anywhere on the planet. How's it changed since you were last racing?
The cars have got bigger, they're heavier, but critically there's more downforce to play with as well now. There was around 4 tons of downforce on the car at 300 kilometers an hour when I drove. You're now looking more towards 5 tons of downforce. So there's a big difference in performance, but because of that, the car being heavier and bigger, you've got to drive in a smoother way. You've got to look after it a bit more. You've got to nurse it through the slow speed corners more. They were much more nimble, agile machines when I drove in Formula 1 compared to now.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway and the track temperature looks warm. That may or may not play into some of the team's hands for today's race. So as all the cars take their positions on the grid, the teams will be hoping their strategies pay off for them in today's race. But the question I'm asking is which teams have got it right and which teams have got it horribly wrong?
All right, here we are. Possible strategies for today's race. So we're pulling up in the 3rd grid slot here in Mexico. It's going to be a long way down to turn 1. So we have to be very, very careful not to smash into the car in front of us of Charles Leclerc, as Aiden Jackson is sitting behind us in P5. New transition for the race start there. George Russell P3, Antonelli on the front row with Charles Leclerc. 5 red lights are off here in Mexico, down the long straight, one of the longest straights in the season. We see a lot of position changes down the order. Single file, Jackson is behind Russell. Jackson almost made a move on the inside. Russell holding it on the outside lane, going through turns 1 and 2. Coming out of turn 3 in the lead. Jackson unable to make a move on Leclerc. He's still holding on to P2. Antonelli and Mayer, P4, P5. They're side by side in the background, as Leclerc is trying to make a move on the inside of turn 4 through turn 5. A lot of moving around there as we see a bunch of 2x2s. The Gulf Williams next to the Red Bull and the Ferrari of Bortoleto and Lando Norris as we go through the order. Lawson and Aaron down at the back of the pack, where Russell 3/10 ahead of Leclerc coming through sector 2, turn 11 into turn 12 to start sector 3. And I'm going to say this right now, I've said it before, sector 2 in Mexico is my least favorite part of this track. We are running pretty much 29 wings as we're back on this main straight. Leclerc is going to be looking to make a move here, as we have no DRS and it's all battery. And I'm honestly half tempted to see what I can do about changing my battery, because I use automatic battery, so that's where I'm losing a lot of my straight line speed, as there could have been a little bit of contact there coming into turn 1 on lap 2 with the game's safety feature prevents us from making any contact, so we did go transparent there for a moment, or no contact, as we fend off Leclerc as best as possible while trying to give Jackson an opportunity to make a move as well. Mayer leading Antonelli as the gap is starting to form between Mayer and Jackson. Another gap forming between Carlos Sainz and Bortoletto from P8, P9. Then yet again down the order between Stroll and Hulkenberg. So the packs are starting to form, and it's already lap 2. And from the tire strategies and the tires you saw on the formation lap, it seems like everybody's going to be going for a one-stop this time around here in Mexico, which I kind of expected. We didn't really see much of an opportunity to go for a two-stop during practice, especially with the race strategy practice module. But yeah, nothing we can really do with Leclerc and Jackson having DRS down the main straight. There's going to be a yellow flag down the order. It looks like it's going to be Bortoletto in the Ferrari. He dropped one position, and yes, it is going to be Bortoletto as he's pulling to the inside of turn 2. There's the onboard, and you could hear it in his car. Some components have worn out. He's going to be pulling off here to the DRS straight in Sector 1, the end of Sector 1. And that's going to be a virtual safety car. Or, no, it's not going to be a virtual safety car. It's just going to be yellow flag in Sector 1. As the rest of this race continues. Lap 3 already. Leclerc already 7 tenths ahead as the gaps are starting to form between the top 5. Antonelli still in the gearbox of Callie Mayer. She's now up in P4. So we see Mayer trying to make a move on Russell. You can see him in the mirror partially coming through turn 12. As Jackson is starting to pull away, and they're already outside of the DRS range for Russell to be able to stay within the top 3. So George Russell on lap 3 is going to have a disadvantage, and potentially Callie Mayer is going to be taking P3. And here is the onboard of Antonelli as they're trying to fight side by side. Russell pushing her to the inside. Not really much else he can do. He can brake late into turn 1 as we see Gasly move up side by side against Antonelli. So they're fighting behind Russell and Mayer. A little bit of a contact between Mayer. If you guys saw her jolting to the right, yellow flag there from the retiring Ferrari of Bortoletto. Lap 5, yet again, Mayer is making another attempt. As I don't know if I made that transition properly, but we're going to go ahead and leave it in the race. But Mayer making that move yet again, as Gasly is still ahead of Antonelli. He's going to be able to make an opportunity against George Russell, the inside on turn 4 this time around. And yet again, Antonelli's right there in the fight. So potentially a loss of 2 positions from George Russell. He's still holding on to P4. Gasly and Antonelli are going to have another opportunity down the main straight. As we're going through Sector 2, and just like I'm saying, you guys can probably tell how hard I'm braking into Sector 2, turn 7. But there is the move from Gasly and Antonelli into turn 1, and I was talking about that's going to be Norris and Hadjar behind, who are side by side. 6 laps already, and we're already starting to feel the effects of these tires wearing out. Antonelli on the inside, coming out of turn 3, making that move into turn 4. They're side by side, going through the rest of the grid to see where everybody else is at. Leclerc ahead of Jackson by almost 2 seconds. Mayer behind Jackson by 4, just over 4 seconds. As it's going to be pretty much what happened in the first season. Everybody's going to start sprinting out, and then we're not going to be able to do much because we're going to fall into our pretty much position that we're going to be stuck in for the rest of the race. As we see Hulkenberg turning around turn 16, he's going to be the first one to come in for his pit stop here in Mexico. So maybe a potential 2-stop for Hulkenberg coming off of those mediums, because it is a little bit early to come off of those mediums onto hard tires. Hadjar and Alonso fighting for position against Sainz and Behrman. Looks like a right rear issue for Hulkenberg. I don't know what happened to Paul Aaron, but he did lose a lot of ground. 5.9 seconds, 6 seconds between Jackson and Leclerc at this point. So we're on board with Leclerc to see when he's going to be coming in. Norris putting pressure on George Russell coming through sector 2 as he's about to lose another position. Coming through the S curve of turn 11 or 10-11. Very high speed sector 2, and it irritates me so much. I hate it. You see George Russell holding on to his position against Lando Norris. We're not going to be coming in yet for our pit stop. Norris is going to be able to make a move down this main straight. We get the power down really well to try to hold off, or hold him off pretty much. Antonelli about 1.8 seconds behind Lando Norris as he's making a move. You see a little bit of a move from Russell to try to defend the inside, or pushing towards the inside, as we see Albon in the Williams falling down the order, down the main straight. About to hit the speed track as he goes to the runoff. So it's going to be Alexander Albon, who also had a good season, retiring here in Mexico. So we move down the order. We see some position changes from Pepe, Marty, and Lawson. They're going to be coming in for their pit stops. Another issue. This time going to be on the left rear, I believe, for the other Audi. So both Audis have had issues with their pit stops. As we're back on board with Charles Leclerc to see if he will be coming in. And that is not quite yet. Jackson 7 seconds behind Leclerc. Mayer holding on to P3. She wants to get back into that championship fight. So we're back on board with Russell, who is still fending off Lando Norris. The back end stepping out a little bit. You guys saw there going through turn 15. And then again through turn 17. Lando Norris is going to be able to capitalize and gain that position on George Russell here on here on lap 13. You can hear the car redlining. You can see the markers on the steering wheel. George Russell, not much else he could do there. Antonelli looking to close in as he's 2.6 seconds behind George Russell. As we see Hajar and Alonso up P10, P11 fighting for position. So we go through the rest of the grid, see if we have any other drivers pitting. Lawson already pit, I believe. Paul Aaron, I believe, did as well. I could be wrong. But there's a lot going on here. As we go back to the top of the order, back on board with George Russell. Now Leclerc, the next lap, lap 14, he's going to be coming in for his pit stop. 8.8 seconds coming into the pits. He's ahead of Aiden Jackson. He's going to be coming around turn 16, turn 17. He's going to be staying out for another lap. It's Leclerc, the race leader, coming in and having an issue with the left rear, right rear tire. I'm not quite sure. We weren't close enough to see which tire it was, but Lando Norris is going to be coming in next for his pit stop. Ahead of George Russell. And Lando Norris, George Russell, and no, Carlos Sainz stayed out. That's going to be Russell in now. I don't like this camera angle, it's so far away. No issues for George Russell. Lance Stroll, you can hear him out on track. No, he's going to be staying in the pits. Stroll and Ocon in the pits. Cole Pinto Maloney in for the pits. You see that gap between Jackson and Mayer. 1.7. She is closing in on him as best as she can. Paul Aaron now coming into the pits. I'm going to miss the Racing Bull livery, as they're going to be opting out. Right front issue, taking the medium tire off as we see Jackson losing pace to Callie Mayer, and he's going to be coming in. And then Callie Mayer is going to be following. So they're going to be battling each other in the pits to see if Callie Mayer can make a position on Jackson. Gasly about 7.1 seconds back. See if he's going to be coming into the pits, and I don't believe he is. No, yes, he is. Jackson, Mayer, Gasly in the pits. Leclerc out. Sainz out. Behrman coming in ahead of Alonso and Hadjar. Jackson's P3, Mayer's P4, Antonelli P4 now. He stayed out on track. Behrman with a right rear issue on that Red Bull car. So a handful of teams having issues today with their pit stops. Russell back to P8 after those position changes. Hadjar P9, Alonso P10. So we're on board with Colapinto momentarily. Maloney for his pit stop. Maloney coming out behind Colapinto. So we go through the rest of the grid. Paul Aaron coming through turn 12. And Leclerc is coming through sector 2 quite fast through turn 9. No, turn 10, 11. So Leclerc is getting pretty close to Paul Aaron to get lapped. So see Carlos Sainz, 7.8 seconds is the gap. Jackson P3, Antonelli 3 seconds back. Mercedes doing really well. McLaren doing really well this race. And Ferrari, Leclerc leading, and Mercedes, Konnersport, McLaren, and Red Bull. Behrman is just outside of the points as we see Carlos Sainz coming in for his pit stop. See if he's going to have any issues this time around. No issues for the McLaren. No, I was wrong again. The front right tire issue for Carlos Sainz. Antonelli coming in for his pit stop. And with this battle between Norris and Gasly, we go to our F1 commentators.
There has been nothing short of action this weekend in Mexico, as we're watching a battle between Norris and Gasly. Most teams have already completed their pit strategies for today's race, so the positions we see drivers in currently could possibly be the finishing result, other than what drivers' pace is looking like.
We didn't see many issues earlier for many drivers, and those who did have issues are already so far back for it not to make much of a difference. This race weekend is especially important because if Konnersport finishes in the points ahead of Mercedes, then they claim the Constructors' Championship today.
That is correct. Konnersport leads against Mercedes, 325 to 234. Ideally, Mercedes needs a podium alongside both Konnersport cars to retire like back in Baku, which allowed this multi-driver fight for the Drivers' Championship to begin with.
The championship is still very much alive for both Leclerc and Norris, as Norris, with his previous result, pushed his way into second in the championship, and Leclerc winning with his current position would mean there's so much more at stake come the final 2 race weekends.
A very interesting and suspenseful end to this season with the sprint weekend in Brazil before we return to Abu Dhabi for the season finale. And on that note, I'd like to welcome Will Buxton to the commentary box. You haven't been here for a while, have you?
No, not at all. You kept telling me you wanted me to pop in again, and with how the end of this season is going, I think I may just stick my head in come Abu Dhabi if they let me.
That would be a thrill to have you in here with us for that championship battle, wouldn't you say? And since we're on that subject, how do you think this championship will turn out?
I honestly am not sure how the end of this season will go. A lot of drivers have shown potential throughout the year, and with the current top 5, it's so close to tell who will come out on top. But if I were to look back to progress on the year and last season's race results for the final 2 races, I'd have to say it would have to come down to who's on that front row at the start of Abu Dhabi.
With how our top 5 has been qualifying recently, it's no telling who will have the advantage in the final race, but it's currently Charles Leclerc with a strong 10-second advantage on Aiden Jackson, who has had a really strong season so far, up until their retirement in Baku.
You really have to admire the work Konnersport has put in this season to not only pry George Russell away from Mercedes, but then give both him and Jackson a car capable of winning races and potentially the championship. All they need today is to bring it home in the points, and the entire project pays off. It's been a remarkable rise for a team that not long ago wasn't even in the conversation.
The Konnersport project, which some dismissed as a vanity experiment back in 2023, has shattered every expectation laid in front of it. What started as a team fighting for relevance has become a team fighting for history. They've cleared every hurdle, hit every milestone, and now halfway through this race, they stand on the brink of becoming the sport's next first-time Constructors' Champions. It's no longer a question of whether they belong. It's how far they can go.
It really would be a statement, almost poetic, to see Jackson standing on that podium at season's end, lifting the trophy he's chased since the team's first shaky laps back in 2023. He's the heartbeat of Konnersport, the driver who stayed when the project looked like a punchline, the one who turned belief into progress and progress into results. But the reality inside the garage is colder than sentiment. George Russell sits ahead in the standings, and in a title fight this tight, teams don't ignore the math. Russell gives them the clearer statistical path to the Drivers' Championship, and when you're also fighting for your first Constructors' title, every point becomes a strategic weapon. Favoring George isn't personal, it's pragmatic. And that's the tragedy for Jackson. The story everyone wants to see isn't always the story the team can afford to chase.
Every long night, every growing pain, every moment they were written off, it's all converging into this season, this fight, this chance to etch their name into the sport's history. 3 years in the running, and Konnersport soon gets to taste a championship victory.
And that is very... I don't know how to explain it. I was feeling pretty emotional writing up those commentary lines. It's a very special moment as we're over halfway through this race, on board with Pierre Gasly, going through sector 2, spinning between turn 4 and 5, and he's going to be stopping on track. There's George Russell looking to make the move. It's going to be yellow flag in sector 2. No overtakes are taken as Carlos Sainz 3.5 seconds behind Russell after those pit stops. And with Gasly parked right here, it's going to be... I don't know what he was doing, because we're on board with Lance Stroll now. Gasly comes through the grass. That's going to be a safety car. That's going to be a safety car here in Mexico. We had a safety car last season, and I still laugh at the fact that we had recording issues this time around last season. Hence why we skipped to the safety car under the replay, because we had to pause the game during that safety car animation. So I was very unfortunate that we had to do that as we go through the order. Lap 26 of 36, lap 27 now, as nobody has gone into the pits for a new set of tires. It is way too high risk for those front runners. Leclerc, Jackson, Mayer, Norris, Russell. The top 5 in the championship are the top 5 in the order for the safety car restart. The only issue is that Jackson and Leclerc are split by Paul Aaron. You can see his time is over a minute. You can see him there behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. That's going to be an advantage for Leclerc to get ahead of Jackson and Mayer. But it's on us driving as George Russell as we kind of struggle to go through our driver order, because I wasn't sure if we were able to move or not. As we come to the race restart at the end of lap 27, start of lap 28. That final right-hand corner, turn 16 into turn 17. We had caught off guard. Norris already pulling away about 6/10 by the time we get to the line. A lot of movement going on ahead, as all of these drivers are going to be on old hard tires. It's going to be a blue flag for Paul Aaron as he's trying to get out of the way. We're going to be holding on to P5 ahead of Carlos Sainz. There's Paul Aaron almost making contact with George Russell. Leclerc trying to pull away, already over 2 seconds ahead. We're in the toe of Lando Norris. We're going to be pushing to the right side of turn 4 outside. This is where we're going to have our thumbnail for today's video, as we're pushing Norris wide to try to gain position. Mayer's on the inside against Jackson, nearly making contact with him. So we see Leclerc out in the distance coming through turn 7, 8, 9. He's already 3 seconds clear of this battle going on. You can see the train of the cars, the 5 cars right here. Carlos Sainz still hitching onto the back of our toe. George Russell. Not George. Back in Leclerc, you saw him going through turn 12. He's already 3.2 seconds, now 3.3 and climbing pretty much at this point, coming out of turn 17 to start lap 29. As the battle is between the rest of the grid. Currently, Jackson and Russell on this podium. Well, regardless, we're going to secure the Constructors' Championship as long as we finish this race. It would definitely be a big finish for both of our Konnersport drivers in the driver's standings, because George Russell is leading Lando Norris by 7 points, and Jackson is behind by 9 points. So very close margin between Jackson, Russell, and Norris, who's back in P5, so that's not helping his case. But with Leclerc winning this race, that will put him into the top 4, or top 3, I guess, as we see a little bit of a snap from Russell on the lap 32. Callie Mayer's going to have another attempt at passing. Norris might be able to do the same thing. I'm not quite sure. I don't quite remember. Does it look like there was a yellow flag? I could be wrong. Russell coming up to the gearbox of Jackson, making a move on the outside of turn 1 and 2, or turn 1 and turn 2. As Russell with DRS is going to try to pull away through start of sector 2. It's going to be Leclerc, Russell, Jackson, so that's going to push Jackson a little bit farther down the order as we look to finish strong for this part of the season. A little bit of a snap there coming through turn 6, and that order is going to be pretty much the same. Norris made a move on Callie Mayer earlier within these last few laps, but on the final lap, we have Aiden Jackson trying to battle George Russell for those podium points. Jackson made a move on the previous lap, and now we have to re-overtake. We waited till this final lap to make that move. We're going to see if we can make that move in sector 1, sector 2. There's the DRS sector 1. We're going to brake late into turn 2 and 3. See if we can make that move as we see Lando Norris in P4. So this is our top 5 in the championship, in the top 5 of this race finish. That's going to be Leclerc up front. That's going to be Jackson P2, as you see by the purple helmet, and then Russell, the blue helmet, close behind, trying to make a move through these S's. He's losing a little bit of ground. He has Lando Norris closing in on him, coming through sector 2's turn 11, turn 12. But we are on board with the race winner, Charles Leclerc. The fireworks are going off early. The 2 Konnersport cars coming through these final few corners. Can Russell make that move into the final corner? No, he cannot. George Russell finishing P3 ahead of Lando Norris in P4.
What a drive! What a driver! Charles Leclerc takes the victory!
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
And the top 3 venturing onto the podium to begin the celebrations. And there can only be one on the top step today. His name is Charles Leclerc. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who's joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, a very interesting Mexico Grand Prix. I was honestly really worried coming into this race weekend with how we performed last time around. And I guess if it wasn't for that safety car, we would have had George Russell finish P6, P7, but luckily we finished on the podium, finishing where we left off in P3. Aiden Jackson moving up from P5 to P2, and Charles Leclerc also finishing where he started, with Lando Norris coming up from P11. The top 5 in this race finish are the top 5 in the championship as we go over to our standings. Driver standings: George Russell leading Charles Leclerc by 5 points. Lando Norris ahead of Aiden Jackson by 2. And then Callie Mayer, I don't know if she's necessarily still in this fight. That gap has increased. She finished in 5th. So she scored 10 points. So she hasn't really gotten herself back into the finish. Into that final fight from the finish. But 12 points separate the top 4 in this driver standings, with 2 locations to go, 3 races, including a sprint. So, Brazil, sprint and feature race, and then Abu Dhabi for the finale. That is yet another race I am worried about, because we're going to be driving as George Russell in Abu Dhabi with this Drivers' Championship. And it's going to be anybody's race so far. And if I haven't, I don't know. We'll have to take a look here at the end of the episode to see if Konnersport clinches the race win, which I believe it is. It's 114 points, but we haven't got the trophy yet. But without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed, because I know I did. And we'll see you guys in the next one.